What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the latest edition of HOTH Topic presented by the Sarlacc Digest. I'm your host, Kris. All right, guys, I'm in the Jedi Temple Archives. That can only mean one thing. I'm about to do a book review, which, as most of you know, that is one of my favorite things. The expanded universe, the lore, where everything happens. Even more so than the movies to me. This is where it all gets kind of the meat and potatoes of everything, right? It's where it all gets fleshed out. And you learn the background of characters, their inside thoughts, what's going on in the history. That's the kind of stuff I love about Star Wars. It's not just the 11 films. It's a plethora of media coming in through animation, books, comics, all sorts of different types of storytelling. And that's what I love, is a ginormous universe building, and that's what really gets me going. So right now we're going to talk about probably, if not for sure, my favorite character in the entire universe, and that's Thrawn. All right, so the latest book came out this last week, Thrawn, Ascendancy, Chaos Rising. And what it is basically a prequel to the last trilogy. Where you're going to find it shoehorned in the timeline is it connects with the last two books ago, which was Thrawn Alliances, when we would go back and forth between Thrawn with Anakin and Thrawn with Darth Vader in the Clone Wars era and the Empire era, right? This one is going to be in that Clone Wars era because there is a point where they cross in the story. I won't get into it to spoil anything, but there is a cross there where we get to the outside of Batuu during that same time frame. So that's pretty cool. And that gives you kind of a layout. It also that's during his most recent time in the book, the current time, we'd call it. But it also goes back through memories. In between each regular chapter is a memory going back, and you learn of either Thrawn's exploits or growing up, or Ar'alani's, or any of the other main characters. You might go into a mission with them in a memory and then come back into their main part of the story. So let's just jump into this whole thing, okay? Thrawn, first off, is Thrawn. Okay, you're not going to get anything different than you're used to. He's a problem solver. He likes puzzles. He likes mysteries, and that's what he does best. And everybody around him knows how he does it, right? They see him do it. They don't understand it, but they know that his art and his studies and everything help him get the results that everybody needs. Okay, so there's a huge amount of respect in the Chiss culture for Thrawn. Even though he's not the highest ranking at all. We're watching him grow up through the Chiss right now during Ascendancy, or during Chaos Rising, I should say. So we're not at full-blown Thrawn, but the behaviors are all there. But he explains a lot of it, like to Ar'alani. We get to see him and Ar'alani together a lot. And through that, he's explaining what he sees. He does that to also Mid-Captain Samacro, one of the other characters you'll meet, who's basically Colonel Jessup from A Few Good Men, if you listen to him, right? So these characters know that he has something special, and they trust him, but they don't always understand it. But you'll get to read or hear, if you listen to Mark Thompson read it to you, you'll get to hear or read him explain it to them, what he's doing and what he sees. And sometimes he'll just be like, I can't explain it. It's just something I know. I can see how to win this battle. I can see the tactics they're using. I can turn it around, but I can't explain it. You'll need to trust me. He'll do that, and then everybody around him will basically be like, yeah, we trust him. But the problem we'll find is just kind of like in the Empire, when there's people that don't like Thrawn and what he does, the same thing happens in the Chiss Ascendancy. They don't all, it's not necessarily a matter of like, but it's a matter of trust. They can see that his potential to bring greatness to, say, let's just say the Chiss or the Myth family in general is huge. But on the other side of that coin, there's also a chance that he can completely destroy them, humiliate them, or whatever. And so he's a risk as well. So they're not always on top of that. So just know that you're going to see a lot of wins from Thrawn, but you're also going to see him struggle with how to get through things. And there's talk about a failure, but it's always usually politically. When there's a failure, militarily, he's unstoppable, which is okay to me. I'm okay with having an unstoppable force as and I'm going to say, hero of the story. I have no problem with that. That's the other thing we're kind of in with these books and Rebels and everything else. The more you learn about Thrawn, you realize he's not necessarily a villain so much as Tarkin I would consider a villain. Palpatine obviously is a villain, and Anakin became Vader a villain, right? I don't see Thrawn in the same light. Thrawn is doing all of this, including later with the Empire, for his people. This isn't about, I believe in the Empire, I'm going to go destroy and wreak havoc. This is about, I have something specific I have to do and I'm going to go do it, and they give me my best shot at success. All right. So let's start out. I'll get to that in a second. Let's start out with just how the layout of the Chiss culture is family-wise. Family-wise, it's not like us. You're born into a family, right? I was born into the Franz family. I'm going to be in the Franz family as far as I can tell for the foreseeable future, since I'm the patriarch of the Franz family, right? That's what it is. Well, Thrawn was born. I'm going to look at notes today, so just watch yourself. Into the Kivu family, okay? So Thrawn's name wasn't even Thrawn, because you remember, Thrawn Yerodo, he's part of the myth family. Again, in Chiss culture, you're born into a family, but you can switch. So he starts out as Vuron, because Kivu, the VU, turns into the rest of his name. Looks like Thrawn Yerodo turns into Thrawn, right? So Vuron is met early in life during his school years, and he's testing exceptionally well, and he gets noticed by the myth family. So the myth family go to adopt him. There's usually a process, interviews, testing, what have you, to get into a family. And it's about merit, right? And there's a level of hierarchy within the families. The Kivu are a very low family. The myth are one of the 9 ruling families. Okay, and I won't get into, I'll put up in a minute. Actually, I'll put up right now. I'll give you the 9 ruling families so you can see it and go through. I'm not going to read things off to you. All right, but there are 9 ruling families, including the myth and the Arizi, which are my 2 that I'll probably focus on throughout this whole thing. Arizi would be Aralani's family. All right. So he starts out there. He doesn't have to go through these tests and these interviews and everything. During the ride to do the testing, he's basically told he's already in. He's already good to go, while he's worried about missing schooling. So even at a young age, they can tell that his political savviness is junk. He knows where he's going, but he knows he has things to do too. And he has priority right now. That is the priority. So he goes through here and he leaves Kivu and he becomes myth. So now he's with the myth family. And now here's where it gets crazy. There are different levels within the family. Not only are the families themselves leveled out, but within each family, you have different sets. So like Thrawn became a merit adoptive, meaning he brings merit to the family by bringing him in. They can see he tests high, might be a huge military asset. They like to have high-ranking officials in the military in each family. He's a good chance at that. Now, here's the trick. In that instance, if you come in and you're a merit adoptive, once your merit's over, like if you retire from the military, your time with the myth is over. Shut it, right? You can get kicked out. So you get adopted from the family, you go to the next one, and then you do your service, and they kick you right out. Well, that's just nuts, right? You're also going to have, sorry, I'm gonna look at these notes. I might not even have read this one down because I had them all dialed in. Anyway, we're just going to go for it. A trial born. The next one's a trial born. Trial born would be where you go through a test, like the Jedi, when their trials to become a Jedi. You have to go through testing and questions and trials to become the next bit, right? So that's kind of wild. Then you're going to have a ranking distant, which they basically bring you into the family. And once you're a ranking distant, any of your descendants then become blood related within the family forever. You're not going to get kicked out. Okay, then you have cousins, and then you have blood, just regular family. All right, so those are the levels within. So imagine a Kivu family, somebody adopting somebody from a Kivu family, and then you're a merit adoptive. I don't even think that would happen at that low, but they didn't get into that. But that's crazy, right? Now, once you're in, a couple of things can happen. I already said you can leave, right? Like you can get, you're done with your service, but you can also trade. It's like you can be a free agent or just leave and sign with somebody else. The Arizi family, right? Aralani's family, came and offered him a spot. He was still a merit adoptive with the myth, and they offered him to be a trial born to jump on over, foregoing the trials. He didn't have to do anything. He would just come in with that added bonus of being a level up, right? And a chance to become the next level. So it's kind of wild how the family works. Also, there's a point where Aralani ranks so high, and she gets to be a flag rank, right? Where she starts running things, where she is and there's a ceremony. I'm going to do some spoilers just so you guys know. But there's a ceremony where they basically strip her of her family, right? Her name had been Ziara, and then Arizi Aralani, right? And Ziara is in the middle of that, just like everybody else's name. So when she leaves Arizi, there's no more Ziara. There's no Zi left, right? She just becomes Aralani. And that's how we know her in the other books is Admiral Aralani. And that's why she's coming. I think she gets to commandant through this book, and even Admiral by the end. But you'll see that, and she's always outranking Thrawn. She's always the higher officer. She takes him on. She takes him on as her first officer a few times. They just have a great relationship within this. And we've had some discussion within the group, like Scott and I discussed. I think it's a matter of respect and admiration, where I think Arlania is just like in awe of Thrawn, right? And Thrawn really admires her, believes in her, and trusts her, and the fact that she trusts him. So they have a really tight relationship. That's how I see it. Scott thinks Arlania is ready to get down and Thrawn doesn't see it. But I don't think we're there. And actually, I hope we're not there. I hope we don't go there, because I'm okay with not having that kind of relationship within Thrawn's world. I'd rather Thrawn just be Thrawn and focused and dead center, right? Though we do see a lot of his personality play out. He has a lot more smiles and sly comments here. He does seem to care for the younger folks, because you're going to meet some we know about Skywalkers, right? But I'm going to tell you real fast, if you haven't read the other ones, the Chiss use Skywalkers. So what that means is, instead of a navigation system, instead of a computer doing it, an AI doing it, they use the Skywalkers. They're force sensitive, but they don't say force sensitive because they don't use the term the force. They're in the unknown regions. They're different from everybody else. It's a different set, right? But they have these instincts, this third sight that they can channel into and help navigate through the unknown regions. So basically, they're force sensitive females, but they lose their sensitivity as they grow older. When they get like 10, 11, 12, basically when puberty hits, they lose that sensitivity, and then they're no longer good there. And then what happens with them is they become adopted by another family. So, but you see throughout, Thrawn has a really good soft spot for the Skywalkers and all of his team, and he always cares for them. And you can kind of tell that in the old books, right? The way he was before. With everybody, he would go ahead and help rise and help them promote and get them better. And that's how Thrawn works. He sees the potential in people and moves them up. I would love to work for Thrawn, no matter what his rank is. I would love to be in his team and working for him, and knowing that if things go good, we all get credit. When things go bad, he'll get us on our own, but as far as the higher ups go, there's no blame. He takes it all. That's how he is, and that's what a leader does, and I love how Thrawn exemplifies that. So now, talking about the Skywalkers, there's Cherie. Cherie is a young Skywalker. She's about 10 years old, and she's part of this team, and she's the navigator on the ships on the adventures they go on. And then you have Thalius, who is a former Skywalker who actually met Thrawn when she was young, and Thrawn had an impact on her life, where she was worried about not being a Skywalker anymore, what she would do. And Thrawn basically, while he's still very young, I believe he's in the academy at this point, tells her, well, what do you mean you don't know what to do? You can choose your own path. And she had never in her life thought that. She'd been a Skywalker her whole life, doing this and being basically Skywalkers. In the other books, you had a feeling they were really important to everybody and they were cherished. Well, they are, but they're not treated as such, right? They're treated kind of poorly, used and abused, and sit there for 15. Well, anyway, as much as they were abused, Thrawn was always the "do you need a rest" type of thing. He would say the crew needs a rest to give Cherie a rest, all this kind of stuff. Well, anyway, Thalius was one as well. Thalius learned now that she has a path that she could go on, and when he said that to her, he was already with the myth. He walks away, and she decides, I can be anything I want to be. I'm going to be a myth. And she ends up getting adopted by that family as well as a merit adoptive, because having a Skywalker in your family, a former Skywalker, is always a plus to any of the families. All right, so that's all cool. So now we're kind of caught up on the main people there. Let's talk just a little bit. I don't want to go too much into the battles and the villains and everything. We have the Nickar-Dune, okay, which are really the villains, and they're run by Yiv the Benevolent. Okay, Yiv the Benevolent is who I thought was going to be Grisk at first, right? They seem to go around and they get other species, other planets, other folks to fight with them or for them. They have almost a control over them. And the Nickar-Dune, especially to Yiv the Benevolent, are extremely loyal. There's a point where Thrawn and Arlani take over one of their ships, and everyone had committed suicide on the ship instead of get captured. And they're wondering, how can somebody have that much control over someone? So this is where I started to get a hint that maybe the Grisks would show up, or maybe in this whole trilogy, the Grisks are the Phantom Menace, so to speak. All right? So those are the villains. I don't want to get into the stories in there, but there is some really good stuff. So let's talk about the unknown regions. Like I said, galaxy building, universe building, and the lore and the history and stuff. So the Chiss were from this area. They don't call it the unknown regions. They call it the chaos now, but they were just from their world thousands of years ago. They got twisted up in the Republic versus Sith wars, the Sith wars. The Chiss were in that, right? So they mentioned it in this book, giving us a big setup for future stories about the past, which was rad in its own right, okay? But when during that time, they were kind of shredded down and they jumped back beyond their borders here. And also within this time, there was, I don't know if it was this time or whatever, but the way the unknown regions, the reason the border is the way it is and hard to get into, because there was a cluster of supernovas that left debris and gases and danger and blockades basically to this part of the galaxy, so you couldn't get in. With slight holes though. Now it's not just like the border, not like there's this big border wall that the Chiss or Palpatine or somebody had built, right? That didn't happen. But there's debris and it goes inside the unknown region. So even within the systems, like the Chiss Ascendancy has its own area, basically. There's box systems, they call them. And you basically have to go through more chaos to get to the next system. And when you go through the chaos, there might only be 1, 2, 3 entries to the next system, and they're guarded by warships. This is a rough and tumble place. They're not exactly technologically savvy or great, because I'll get into that a little bit, because they obviously don't have navigation systems. Actually, I'll get into it now. They don't have navigation systems, and they think it's wild that the core worlds use droids for just about anything. For navigation, they use droids, and they would never do that. And Thrawn even mentions, it's so odd right now. There's even a war going on where droids are fighting half the battle. So they don't have droids. They wouldn't know what to do with 3PO if he walked in, right? They know of robots and machines doing work, but nothing that thinks for themselves. So that was kind of wild too. Okay, now back to the box system. So this is where like the Nick Ardoon are here, the Prath, the Chiss, everybody around here is separated. There's a point in the book where I do love it. I'll spoil this part, where one of the villains, a villain is holding some good guys and saying, "What's Thrawn's plan? What's his plan?" And like losing his mind. And Thrawn comes in and he uses the line, "I'm here. You can calm down now. I'm here to put you in a box." The way it was said, I heard it and took it as a double meaning, right? Like, I'm going to put you in a box system so you can't get away, but I'm going to finish you right now and put you in a box. It was so cold-hearted the way it came out, the way it was delivered, because I listened to it, Mark Thompson reading it to me on the audio version. I do have the book version too, but I haven't had the time to go through it 100%. I just go through for some clarification. But I'll tell you what, when he delivered that line, phenomenal, blew my mind. That's the kind of Thrawn I love. He's been taking care of his people the whole time, his team and his entire race, the Chiss. But when it came down to it right there, when he was threatening some of his team, he wasn't having it. He went full on hardcore. I loved it. So we explained that part. We talked about the navigators. Oh, there's also navigators. Forget the Skywalkers for a second. There's also navigators. So nobody in the systems, nobody in the unknown region uses a navigation system. They use navigators. I haven't caught if this is really a force sensitivity. I believe it is. They have that instinct. They talk to the one or what have you, and they're waiting for signals to know when to turn, and they get feelings. So I assume it's a force sensitivity. But there's a whole navigators guild, and that'll play a part in this too. And that's pretty awesome. I mean, we have all these people. And the Chiss, check this out. The Chiss still hire navigators, so they hide that they have a Skywalker. How wild is that? They're hiding these Skywalkers because they feel like their enemies would come after them. All right. Now let's talk about the Chiss homeworld and the Chiss in general. So people pretty much leave the Chiss alone because they have a huge, reputation. There we go. Couldn't think of the word for a second. They have a reputation for demolishing people. Like if you met, like they will not fire upon you unless fired upon. They don't take a shot unless they're shot at. There is no way they will start a fight, but the word is, if you start it, they're going to finish it and smash you and you're done. So nobody really messes with the Chiss. And that's kind of what the Nick Ardoon seem to be doing, is gathering people to go against the Chiss, is what their thought is. Because they think they have just billions and billions of people and this huge armada. Well, it turns out they don't. So you have, what Thrawn and Aralani are part of is basically the expansionary fleet. They're out looking for different planets, what's out there. They're exploring. Right? It's what they do. Basically, help me, they're like Starfleet. Okay? They're out there doing their thing. That hurt. I actually said that out loud, and I'm sorry, and I might edit that later, but probably not because I don't edit a whole lot of stuff. Anyway, so that's the expansionary fleet. Now, Arlani brings Thrawn to Chila, the capital planet, okay, in the capital city. When they get down there, she knows he's about to figure something out that only the flag ranks and the very high ups in the family know about, okay? They get to Chila, and as they're on a train, he's looking around, and Arlani knows he's going to pick up on it, but she's not allowed to tell him. All of a sudden, he realizes the trains are pretty much empty besides like 2 or 3 people once in a while. There's nothing going on in the buildings, but the lights are on, the heat is on, everything's going on. It's a frozen tundra of a world, right? But they have cities. The ice had taken over, long, long ago, probably about the same time, 1,000 years ago, right? So all this is going on. He figures out that nobody's here. What's happening? And Arlani explains they've all gone underground because of what happened to the planet and what have you. Then you realize that not everybody went underground. Everyone in the unknown regions, anybody knows about the Chiss, think there's about 8 billion of them on this planet. There are 60 or 70 million. That's a far cry from 8 billion. They are down to that much. So they keep this facade up for their trade partners and their enemies is what they do. And they don't tell anybody about it. So they keep a lot of secrets to keep up their reputation. So that's just wild as all get out. Right. So this entire race that we've thought of for years and years to be this great Chiss race, they may have been, they may still be, but they are a lot smaller than we thought. So this brings me to that point in the very beginning. I wanted to wrap that back up with a bow, is why Thrawn went to the Empire. And I'm probably just going to end it after this. Okay. He went to the Empire, not because he's a villain, not because he believes in their politics. He did it because he needed the army. He knew there was a threat coming. We know it's going to be the Grisk eventually from the other books, right? He went to the Empire so he would have ships. He would have an army. He would have help in order to save his people from utter annihilation. If this gets any higher, and he's only got 60 or 70 million on his capital planet plus the expansionary fleet, he's the one, right? He's the one that can get things done, but he's only one dude. And I'll tell you what, anybody that spoke about him in the book militarily, Samacro, for instance, somebody was worried about something, and Samacro, who is not Thrawn's biggest fan, he doesn't like that Thrawn keeps his ideas to his chest. He doesn't like any of that. He doesn't dig on it, but he knows Thrawn gets results. Somebody was worried about a mission, and Samacro himself said, "You know what? Thrawn's here. We're going to get through it, and I promise you that." And that's just how it was. There's all this faith in it. But anyway, that's just one dude. You can't run an entire army and base it all on him. So his plan, his tactic then that they trusted, this is not part of this book, this is all in general, right, was to send him to the Empire because that was his plan. Let me go to the Empire, let me get into the army and let me help save us. And they went with it. That's my assumption at this point, right? So now we know why. This is why he's an Imperial, but he would never, like, say if he survives after Rebels, we find out he exists after Return of the Jedi. If this all happens, he won't go First Order. I don't even know if he would run the remnants of the Empire anymore, right? I think he might go New Republic because whoever has the strongest army, the numbers, and the way to help him is where he's going to go. So if we get to that point, we have to be after Aftermath because we haven't really heard anything about him. We know he's in the unknown regions at this point because there was a mention of him in Aftermath. If he comes back after and there is no more Empire at all, not even the big remnants we had during Aftermath, right? And the First Order doesn't exist and they wouldn't be the ones in power with a huge army yet, I would say he'd have to go to the New Republic before they demilitarized. I think he would have to switch. Because again, I don't see Thrawn as this maddening villain. I see him as an awesome character that sees puzzles and can figure them out and get the job done. That's how I see him now. Now, also, he's got a ruthless streak. He will tear you apart as soon as something happens or if you're on the wrong side of him. But, there's this quote during the book where they say, he's looking around and they said, "Don't you see all the people?" He's all, "Well, yeah, I see the people, but their personhood doesn't take play into this. There's people, obviously, but he basically didn't care about them, right?" He's all, "I don't see their personhood. I see they're either possible allies, possible enemies, or assets." That's it. So Thrawn, outside of the Chiss, is very much, basically he's a Chiss supremacist is what he is, a blue supremacist. So, and I'm okay with that in the character. It's cool. He's defending his people and they're a whole different realm, right? So is what it is there. But just trying to give you a little bit of background there without spoiling absolutely everything. Let's go ahead and wrap this back up. So now you know about the Chiss family structure. You know about the unknown regions. You know that you're going to get a book about Thrawn and these characters where you're going to see a little bit more of his personality come out. Smiles here and there, wisecracks. Not when I say wisecracks, he's not Han, right? It's going to be a subtle comment here and there that means basically he's in on it. He gets it, you know? And then you're going to see, you know, political turmoil like you do in Star Wars between the families more than anything, right? It's all internal struggle. Get some good villains, some good puzzles, and a good setup for the next 2 books, I believe, and some stuff post Return of the Jedi and pre everything, right? We're going to go some new Old Republic type stuff. Nice drops in this book. So again, if you're looking to get into the books, the Thrawn books are the way to go. Always go with Timothy Zahn or Claudia Gray, just so you know, with her books as well. But try and grab the other Thrawn trilogy, but you can start right here on Thrawn Ascendancy, Chaos Rising. It'll give you a great read, whether you read it through the book or you have Mark Thompson read it to you in the audio or audible version. All right? So with that said, grab the book. Take care. May the Force be with you. Later. Remember to subscribe, like, follow, share, do whatever you can for the Sarlacc Digest. And this is Kris on the Hot Topic presented by the Sarlacc Digest. Take care.